Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to episode 52 of Driver Suit Blog Radio and the first episode of 2023. It's a new year. I've got a new logo, a new microphone, and I've got some plans for 2023, including some more vintage racing games, a few deep dives, and some off-topic things. We're going to have a lot of fun here. So, for the first episode of 2023, we're going to discuss a lot of news stories that took place during my winter hiatus. And as I said, I've made quite a few new changes. But before we get to the stories about racing, I need to discuss something. I'm going to send an open message to Frigidaire. I am never buying any of your products ever again. And there's a very valid reason as to why I'm doing this. Because a few months ago, and I mean September, my old dorm fridge that I've had since college that was used when we bought it, finally gave out. After serving me faithfully for 22 years, Godspeed. So I go and I find a reasonably priced one from Frigidaire. Had everything I wanted, just the right size. And I bought it, I have it set up, and it works well. That is until mid-November. I haven't even had this thing for 3 full months yet. It dies. The coolant leaks out and it just stops working. So, I get in touch with Frigidaire's customer service. As you do, thinking that maybe there's some way that the coolant can be replaced. And because this thing's still under warranty. It's still pretty much still out of the box as of yet. So I go out to their online chat where the first person I talked to immediately hung up on me. And then, after spending about 20 minutes with the second guy, he ends up basically saying, look, we'll just give you your money back and you can keep the old fridge. So, he did. I bought a new one and I have it set up. It's from Insignia and I'm never using Frigidaire again. And to top that off, I now have a broken mini fridge sitting in an office next to mine. I have no idea when it's going to get moved out, or how it's going to get moved out. And I'm mad. I'm never using Frigidaire again. The thing was made in March. I bought it in September. It didn't even make it to December. Frigidaire, you suck, and I'll never use your products again. Okay, with that little temper tantrum out of the way, let's discuss some racing broadcasting. Do you remember when watching a race was as simple as turning to which channel that the race was going to be on and watching the race? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Nowadays, there are so many hoops to jump through and it gets really annoying. I say this because recently there was some major NASCAR broadcasting news. Now, there was this little gem from John Orand in Sports Business Journal, link in the description. According to this article, quote, digital media companies have engaged in NASCAR about its rights, but circuit executives will decide a digital deal that will put too much pressure on team sponsors that need the biggest audience available. This will remain a very broadcast-heavy deal, but expect NBC to win the right to put a number of races exclusively on Peacock streaming services. Okay, so a couple of things here. It was previously reported that NASCAR was going to ask for a 10 to 15% increase, but as of yet, that remains to be seen. Now, according to Front Office Sports, link in the description, Fox and NBC pay NASCAR combined $820 million annually under a long-term deal that expires at the end of the 2024 season. NASCAR could seek a combined $900 to $950 million annually under its next contract, said sources. Well, I mean, I have to come out and say this. Peacock sucks. NBC's coverage sucks. The fact that NBC doesn't have a sports channel sucks. This is not going to work out well at all, and I do not expect this new news to go over well with NASCAR fans. We all saw this in July with IndyCar. You put the race on Peacock on a weekend where there's no real competition, and it fails to generate a rating. I mean, it's not like Peacock is a moneymaker too, because according to Greg Salali of International, according to George Georgszalai, international business editor for the Hollywood Reporter, quote, NBC Universal's media units included 506 million of revenue and an estimated EBITDA loss of 614 million related to Peacock. That compared to the 230 million of revenue and adjusted loss of 520 million related to the streamer in the prior year period. Now, as of the time of recording, the full 2022 losses have not been released for Peacock. But considering the fact that the chief financial officer of NBC Universal said that they plan on losing 2.5 billion, that seems pretty much on par for Peacock. So we're going to go to IndyCar now. This was one that I found both funny and annoying at the same time. So I didn't know this because it really hasn't made the rounds, but IndyCar is going to have a documentary series on the CW. Number one, I didn't even know the CW was a thing, but that's neither here nor there. And it will be produced by Vice and Penske. And I bring this up because of an op-ed column entitled "New Docuseries is the Publicity That IndyCar Deserves and Needs" by Dave Malsher Lopez, link in the description. I'm going to read the first two paragraphs because this is these are gems, and this shows the lack of thinking that was put into this article. Quote, during this off-season, something calling itself the IndyCar Drivers Association sent a letter to 5 very senior members of Penske Entertainment asking IndyCar to step up its marketing. It was, by most accounts, an ill-conceived and ill-constructive missive from a loose band of drivers, and apparently it went down like a cup of cold vomit like those at the top. At the very least, it came across as wholly unnecessary to point out the obvious, that IndyCar deserves to be more popular, I'll get to that in a few minutes, and seemed to pay little heed to the fact that there are people working 20-hour days trying to improve the situation. It's not as if the arrival of the letter was greeted by facepalm moments from the 5 recipients, quote, gee, that's what we've been doing wrong. We haven't marketed ourselves. Now the key sentence here, quote, it came across as a wholly unnecessary effort to point out the obvious, that IndyCar deserves to be more popular. Does it? I'm sorry, some people are meant to be at the top, and some people are meant to be at the bottom. That's just how it is. Some companies are made to be at the top, some are made to be at the bottom. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, somebody's at the top, somebody's at the bottom. And the thing is, for some reason, people in IndyCar think that this Vice series is somehow going to be the magic wand that turns around and makes IndyCar as popular as they want it to be. Yeah, maybe this will get a few viewers, but not as many as they're hoping. Seriously, they're putting this on the CW. You don't put this on USA after WWE. You don't put this on NBC on a slow Saturday afternoon. You're putting it on the CW. Again, I didn't even know the CW was still a thing. I hadn't heard about it as a current entity in years. Might get a few thousand, but it's not going to bring in a million viewers per telecast. And also, this singular docuseries is not going to undo decades of bad management, poor promotion, bad marketing, bad TV deals, miscue after miscue. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. IndyCar has been mismanaged awfully since the 1990s. Now that the racing boom of the 90s is long past, this is what you get. And before you question me saying, well, how do you know that? I'm going to pop up some numbers on TV ratings on averages. So just bear with me. These are the numbers that both NASCAR and IndyCar get. NASCAR has run itself better, has marketed itself better, has more pop culture references. IndyCar has done little, if anything, to help themselves. They deserve the numbers they get. And to be honest with you, this is probably going to be the best it's going to be for a while. You might get a few more viewers, but you're not going to compete with NASCAR. And I should point out that if you look at the numbers carefully, the overwhelming majority of NASCAR races on NBC were on USA, and the overwhelming majority of IndyCar races were on NBC, yet NASCAR never failed to defeat IndyCar in the ratings. The only time that an IndyCar race and a NASCAR race on the same day outdrew NASCAR was Memorial Day weekend, where more people watched the Daytona 500 than the Coca-Cola 600. But it's the most historically important race in the United States. Other than that, IndyCar couldn't beat NASCAR with a belt. In the United States, NASCAR is on top, the NHRA is second, and you've got Formula One and IndyCar sort of battling for the third and fourth position. But the fact is, if you watch just regular TV, like I'm not talking racing program, if you watch regular TV, the fact that Formula One is marketing itself better, using their drivers, using their cars more, to more effectively market their sport tells you something. Formula One, and we'll get to them a little later because I have changed my tune it a bit, but Formula One is marketing itself much better in the United States than either IndyCar or NASCAR or even the NHRA. And they're going to get more viewers. Now again, I don't think Formula One is a good fit for America, and we'll get to that a little later. But I don't want to seem as though I'm bashing the sport as a whole. But IndyCar and their fan base seem to be smoking the hopium, as Jim Cornette would say. I mean, again, you're not marketing your sport well. And I would say this, like there are marketing people in the NHRA there are marketing people in IndyCar. Sometimes in life, when you're running a business and you have something that clearly isn't working, you get rid of it and fix it with something you think can. And whoever the marketing department at IndyCar is has not done a sufficient job for quite some time. And I think firing everybody and starting over from scratch might be the best way to go. I mean, even if WWE was smart enough to cancel ECW because it wasn't getting good ratings, you can get rid of the marketing department and get someone better. What you have now isn't working. It hasn't been working for some time, and no matter how much faith you put into it, it's not going to work. At some point, you just have to burn it to the ground and start again. And I think that's what IndyCar needs to do with its marketing department. And I'm not bashing the sport. I want IndyCar to succeed. I like IndyCar. The racing is good. It's fun to watch. But when you have so many issues that are just not being resolved, or either maybe they are being resolved a little bit, just not effectively enough, cut your losses, burn it to the ground, and start over. Sometimes in life, that's the best way to go. And IndyCar's marketing department is very much in that situation right here, right now. So, now we're going to go to LIV Golf. And I'd talked about how dumb of a move this whole thing was, and how there was no clear way to make money, that the organization in and of itself was going to make money, because they didn't have a TV deal. You want people to care about your sport, yet they can't watch it on regular TV, which is, I get that the internet and viewing and streaming sites are a thing, but broadcast TV does still exist. So this is from, again, previously mentioned John Aron in the Sports Business Journal, who talks about the LIV golf deal, which was in the same article as one of the previous articles. LIV cuts a U.S. broadcast deal. Link in the description. No, it's not going to be with, quote, no, it's not going to be with Fox, despite rumors that the two were close to a deal last fall. Instead, LIV Golf will make a deal with the CW network, which is majority owned by Nexstar. LIV will not receive a rights fee, but it will handle the bulk of ad sales, and LIV will also handle all production. So, first off, step in the right direction. You got a TV deal. Okay, can't really argue with that, but again, the CW? How desperate were they to get a deal that they would work with the C? Again, I haven't watched the CW in at least, 10 years maybe? I honestly, till I started doing this week's podcast, I didn't know it was still a thing. I thought it had been bought out and its name changed. I hadn't heard of it because they don't have anything of any real significance. But to be honest with you, the CW isn't a powerhouse. And the talent level in the LIV isn't there as it is in the PGA. You're not going to be setting the golf world on fire. I mean, yeah, sure, these guys are going to get paid large amounts of money because the owner of the company is a golfer, is a golf fan. He's also Saudi royalty, but, without a clear way of making money, this is doomed to fail. And I'm sorry. I like the idea. Unlike some people, I've been thinking about this as of late. I do like the idea of an older company like the PGA who's sort of just keeps doing the same thing over and over again. But to have someone else come out and say, hey, we're going to try something new, okay, that's one thing. But when you have no clear plan for success, you just sort of throw it out there and see if it works, it's not a good move. And there's also been a lot of lawsuits between LIV and PGA. And we'll see where this goes. I don't think that LIV is long for this world. I think it's ill-conceived. I think there's no plan to make money, and there's no real strategy in anything that they do. It's just sort of we're just going to have tournaments and just see how it goes. Okay. I mean, yeah, you're going to get some people leaving, some golfers leaving PGA for the prize money, but you're not going to get the top guys. And B, with the CW, you're never going to get a huge audience. So, yeah, it's just not good looks all around. So, yeah, we're going to okay, you know what? I need a break. I'll be back with some racing news from another area. I'll be right back. So we're back, and I'd like to discuss F1 for a minute. I know I said that they would never be covered on Driver Seat Blog Radio ever again, but I've had a change of heart. I am going to cover certain topics. Specifically, I'm going to discuss every mishap that they make. When they start giving me reasons to compliment them, I will compliment them, but as long as they're giving me rope to hang them, I will hang them with it, and I will not feel bad for doing so. So, if you're familiar with NASCAR YouTube, you're more than likely familiar with a channel called Black Flags Matter. He did a very interesting and poignant and relevant, I guess you could call it a rant, about the elitism in Formula One between the organization itself, its owners, its drivers, and especially its fans. It's a very fascinating listen, and I have a link in the description if you want to listen to it. And part of the reason that I'm bringing this up is because when you're the biggest and you're the best in what you do, you believe yourself to be invincible, and you believe that every decision you make is right, and that's exactly why they royally screwed up. Now, I'm a believer of free speech within reason. If we have differing opinions, we have differing opinions, but I'm not going to call for your deplatforming if we disagree. In the United States, you have the right to express your opinions and worship however you so choose. I know a lot of people with different backgrounds in my life. I listen to them. I might disagree with them. I might agree with them. I don't think less of them if they have differing opinions. You have the right to express yourself however you so choose, as far as I'm concerned. As long as you're not inciting violence or spreading deliberate misinformation, you can have whatever opinions you want. I really don't care. I bring this up because multiple sources have stated that F1 is adding a new rule to their rulebook. This rule explicitly states, quote, "The general making and display of political, religious, and personal statements or comments, notably in violation of the general principle of neutrality promoted by the FIA under its statutes, unless previously approved in writing by the FIA for international competitions or by the relevant ASN for national competitions within this jurisdiction." Now, additionally, there will also be a new rule that individual team members can be penalized, for not following the FIA request during moments such as the podium ceremony. And that rule states, quote, "Failure to comply with the instructions of the FIA regarding the appointment and participation of persons during official ceremonies and any competition counting towards an FIA championship." So, to sum it up simply, according to new Formula One rules, you have to be neutral, and if you want to make political statements, they have to be approved in advance by Formula One and the FIA, or you could get in serious trouble. Now, this was clearly done to appease certain countries and or sponsors. There's no other logical reason than that. Look at what happened with the World Cup. The World Cup in Qatar saw a lot of these messages. They went out of their way to censor them, and this was done in response to multiple drivers wearing clothing with social justice, LGBTQ plus community, the global climate message, and other messages, which has annoyed a lot of sponsors and track owners. Now, I have a question directed specifically to Formula One. Do these big companies intentionally try to make themselves look bad by doing this? I mean, I can't help but think of the way the NFL handled the Colin Kaepernick crisis. The NFL came out looking like idiots on this one, and it's not difficult to see why. The NFL and their owners and executives showed themselves to be a bunch of out-of-touch, grumpy old white men. It was a debacle. It cost the NFL fans, it cost the team owners millions of dollars, and there are some who are still in the NFL today who think that the situation was handled well. If the NFL or Formula One wanted to attract heat, boy, have they ever done so. This news has been very poorly received. Nobody at the top has any idea how this makes the ownership or the league look at all in life. And I don't care who you are or how powerful you are. I don't care if you're a president, a prime minister, a king, a CEO. Everybody, and I mean everybody, needs somebody in their lives who isn't afraid of you to tell you the truth of when you're making a major mistake. You need them because they're usually the first person to say to you, look, this is a terrible idea, it will backfire, and it won't make us look good. And again, the group of people who really need these the most, politicians, CEOs, performers, royalty, athletes, I mean, anybody who is in a position of power needs a person to tell them when they're screwing up. But, as has been shown, anybody who is in this position is usually a yes man because they know if they don't, they'll be sacked. And also, do companies intentionally pick the worst time to make these announcements? With everything going on at the time that this was announced between the World Cup controversies, the Iranian protests, Elon Musk running Twitter, why would you think now would be a good time to limit the speech of F1 drivers? You had the World Cup debacle, and Qatar looks like a really awful country before, during, and after the game. You've had the Iranian protests over individual rights, where basically protesters are being shot in the street and executed for standing up for what they believe in. Twitter, under Elmo's stench, has become a hellhole. Yet apparently, this was such an issue that this rule was added to the rule book. Now let's address the obvious question and answer here. The obvious question is, who does this benefit? The obvious answer is, it benefits the upper echelon of Formula One and maybe the team owners, but it doesn't benefit anywhere else. It might benefit a few sponsors, maybe a few tracks. Could even theoretically benefit a few countries. But for the most part, it benefits F1 as a corporate entity and nobody else. When the NFL censored Colin Kaepernick trying to appease a small amount of people, it pissed off the majority of people. F1 has just done the same, but they don't listen to the majority of people. And I point this out because according to Sports Media Pro, link in the description, F1's average audience for each race as of 2021 was 70,300,000 globally. This is not a low number. This is actually, I think, with maybe a few exceptions, the most watched event. If you had 70 million watching a singular event in the United States, it would be the most watched event of the year outside of the Super Bowl. So why should the average racing fan not be heard when there are 70,300,000 of us globally watching every week? We're the reason it exists, and we're the reasons that it exists, and why it should be heard, but we aren't. This stupid new policy benefits the few, screws over the most visible, and the people that they support. It proves that those in charge are, like the NFL, a bunch of out-of-touch white men. It proves that Formula One will stop at nothing to protect their own interests. And this is bad because if this means that teams or fans have to get thrown under the bus for F1, then they will. And this is never going to change. I hate to break it to you, but all of the hopium smoking, all of the, well, if we just do this, they'll listen to us, it's not going to work. Every big company is only concerned about themselves. Every big company will not hesitate to throw their employees or their customers under the bus if the situation warrants it. I've worked for big companies. I can tell you, you're expendable. Teams can be expendable. Drivers can be expendable. It's just the only really not expendable entity outside of Formula One itself is Ferrari, because they've got they know that they can use their political power to the best of their abilities. Outside of that, maybe Red Bull, maybe Mercedes, but anyone who isn't one of those three can get thrown under the bus at any time. Fan bases can get thrown under the bus. And to sit here and say that what's happening is acceptable is just, no, it isn't. But there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Now, I had some more news stories ready to go, but I'm so pissed off. I'll end the first podcast of 2023 here. I'm Dave Firestone. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with episode 53 of Driver Suit Blog Radio.